What's up, gamers? Are you dropping frames in Warzone after the Season 5 Reloaded update? In this video, I'm going to go over my full graphics settings to make sure you get the most frames out of your AMD PC. Now, if you're an NVIDIA player, don't worry, because 99% of these settings will apply to you as well. There are two key settings that are going to make a huge impact on your game. Stick around to the end of the video so you don't miss out on those max frames. So we're going to start with display here. You're going to go display mode. So I use full screen borderless, but that's because I've got two monitors. And so what this does is this allows me to go from my gaming monitor over to my recording monitor, or your 3D radar, if that's what you want to. If you're not running two screens, then you can go ahead and put full screen exclusive. So what this does is it constrains your mouse to your monitor, basically. If you're not running two monitors, it doesn't really matter. If you are running more than one monitor, I do the borderless so that I can move freely. I can move my mouse freely so I can hit pause on my recording or whatever it is I need to do. If you're not doing any of that, but you still have multiple screens, if you're not doing anything while you're in the game, like on another monitor, then you could do full screen exclusive, and that will make it so your mouse is constrained to that gaming monitor. I don't think I would ever do this windowed up here. It says it's for resizable and movable window. I'm gonna be honest with you and transparent. I have no idea what the hell that even means. So I would stick with either full screen exclusive or full screen borderless. It just depends on if you need to move to your other screens there. Next, obviously, make sure your display monitor is set to the correct one. You can see here I've got two monitors. So this is my main gaming monitor here, and then this is going to be my secondary monitor with my music and my OBS recording, all that sort of stuff. So make sure that it's on your actual gaming monitor. Display adapter. So this is going to be your graphics card. This right here is going to be your graphics card. You want to make sure that you're not on like any type of internal graphics. Some PCs will have dedicated internal graphics, and then some will have your graphics card, which I'm sure most of you probably have graphics card. So just make sure that you're running it on your actual graphics card and not your internal graphics. Coming down here to aspect ratio, you can leave this to automatic, but I mean, we play in 16:9, so I always just make sure 16:9 wide is selected. I find sometimes with these automatic features, sometimes they kind of wig out, and so your picture may be off, or if it's kind of like zoomed in while you're playing the game and you're missing some information like on the sides or at the top of your screen, check to make sure this isn't set to automatic. It'll do weird shit sometimes. Just make sure you're on 16:9 here. Display gamma, I do the 2.2 because if you come down to here, this actually shows that it's used for a monitor, or I'm sorry, sRGB is used for a monitor, and then the BT18 whatever is actually for a TV. So if you are using a TV as your monitor, which if you are, I highly suggest not doing that. You can pick up a 1080p, 144, 180, 240 frame or hertz monitor for less than $100. So if you're using a TV, I would highly suggest you make the investment to get an actual gaming monitor itself. But if you are running a TV, boom, that's what you gotta, that's what you run right there. Brightness, obviously, I think that's self-explanatory. I have mine on 48, barely visible, and this is going to depend also on your monitor settings themselves, like the actual brightness settings and whatnot on your PC for the monitor. I just leave it whatever it is and use this here. And then again, constrained mouse to game window, I have that turned off so I can freely go back and forth in between my two monitors here. And come down here to sustainability. Eco mode preset, I have mine set to custom. This is, at least for me, again, I have an AMD PC, so for me, this VSync, gameplay, and menus, I have both of those turned off. That just seems to help me with my frame rate a little bit. Custom frame rate, I leave it at I put it on custom. This is kind of a big one for me as well. Gameplay, so I have a 240 hertz monitor. That's what I game on, is a 240. So I set mine at slightly higher at 250. You can get more frames, but if your monitor is only a 240 hertz monitor, getting 400 frames really isn't doing anything for you. It's just causing other aspects of your game to basically get bogged down or be sacrificed. So I keep mine at 250 because my monitor's at 240. And then menu custom frame rate limit, I set mine to 60. So basically what this is if you look up here in the top corner, I'm only pulling 62 frames because I'm in a menu. There's no reason to have your PC working hard during a menu. So I cap mine at 60. You can cap it lower if you like, but 60 seems to work fine. Out of focus, I keep mine at 30 as well. When the game is out of focus, like sometimes you'll notice way off in the distance, when you're in game, things will look kind of Play-Doh-y, I guess, or kind of bad. I leave mine at 30 because that helps the visual view of the gameplay of close to me, of the gunfight that I'm currently in. So that's why I keep that down a little bit lower. Render resolution up to leave it on optimal. Pause game rendering, I leave that turned off. Focus 90. None of this stuff really matters a whole lot. HDR, this is one I do leave at automatic, just because, to be honest with you, I don't fully know exactly what this is for, but either way, it doesn't seem to affect the game at all, so I leave mine on automatic. Come over here to quality here, graphic preset custom. Sometimes this won't let you choose custom until you start making changes to these other settings here. So, but I leave mine at custom. Render resolution, make sure that matches whatever your monitor is. So I play on a 1440p monitor, 240 frames. So just make sure that, you know, if you're on a 1080p monitor, make sure that's set down to come down to where it's 1080. So you'd be at 75, but I play again at 1440. So let me get that back up. Dynamic resolution, that's locked. It's turned off for me, and I believe that's because the graphic preset is set to custom. Now this here, upscaling and sharpening, and the VRAM scale target. So those are the two key settings that I was talking about in the intro here. So these are the two most important settings, and we're gonna go over this here in just a little bit. I'm gonna provide gameplay recording of all these different settings. So I went through and I tested these. I didn't test the NVIDIA, the Intel, obviously, because I'm not even sure why this is on here, because I don't have an NVIDIA card. I have an AMD card. I didn't test the 1.0. I tested the 3.0 and the FIDELITYFXCAS, and there's some major differences between those. We'll see that later with video evidence. And then the VRAM scale target. I tested 50 and 90. You can go in between, but I just went from one extreme to the next for research purposes. So texture resolution here, I leave mine on normal, not to try to flex on anybody at all, but I have a very good PC. I have a 7900 XTX AMD graphics card and a Ryzen 9 something. I don't remember what it is right now, but I have a very high-end PC. It can play 4K just fine. It's kind of a beast. So you may need to put these down to low or very low depending on what graphics card you have. So these you can kind of test on your own. But the texture resolution, so what this is going to do is it's basically the kind of the sharpness of the image. You can see here, this is a little bit on the lower side and this is on the higher side. So you can see like the color's a little bit brighter. It's a little bit duller on this side, but I could run mine on high. You can see here on the bottom right, when you go to each one, that's your VRAM usage, and it changes with each setting. You want to try to keep this as low as possible, which is going to basically make your PC not work as hard. The harder it works, the more frames you're going to drop. So I leave mine on normal. You may need to leave yours on low or very low, depending on your PC. Texture filter anisotropic. Okay, so the texture filter, I leave mine on normal as well. You might need to put yours on low. Depth of field, I leave off. Detail quality level. So what this is if you can see here, some of the shadows look a little bit different. The water looks slightly different. The flower over here on this side, it looks a little bit more like an actual flower, a little filled out. Me personally, these little details aren't important to me because it's not affecting the gunfight. I leave mine to normal. Particle resolution low. So I put this on low because what this would be high particle. This is low particle. So all this is just noise. It's just the clutter on your screen when explosions go off, thermites are going off, that sort of stuff, which, just think about it. If you have an enemy standing behind here and this is going off, the big ass firework thing, it would hide them more than it does over here. You can argue that there's smoke, but there's smoke in both of them. So you can see here, around here, you're not getting all this noise that's obstructing your view from the enemy. So I leave mine on low because it's unnecessary. And again, it just requires more resources from your computer to generate this sort of stuff, so which in turn can lower your FPS. Bullet impacts I have on, but that's because when I'm in the firing range, I like to test my recoil patterns and whatnot, so I like to see what my bullets are doing. Persistent effects, I have that turned off. Shader quality is medium. On-demand texture streaming, minimal. Local texture streaming quality, I have set to low. Shadow quality, I have set to normal. You can put that to low, very low. High or ultra, I mean, this is just preference. But again, you can see if you look down here on the right-hand side, this is going to increase or decrease your VRAM usage. So yeah, if you have ultra, you're gonna be able to see the shadows better. Maybe you'll see an enemy a little bit better in the shadows. I personally have never felt that way because I initially played on ultra. It just wasn't worth it, and it was dropping my frames. So I play on normal. You can play on low. Screen space shadows set to low, ambient off, reflections normal. You can see here you got. Why do you need that reflection in the game? That reflection is going to do absolutely nothing for you, but take up resources on your PC and cause you to drop frames. Static reflection quality. Actually, I don't even know why that's on high. That should be on low, because again, you're not looking in the mirrors. It's part of the reflection part, so you're not going to see an enemy in the mirror. So I put that on low. Tessellation, all of these are going to be off or low. Water quality, you can again. This is all just particle stuff. Yeah, it looks more clear, it looks prettier, but it's consuming more resources and is dropping your frames. I play at 118. Make sure your ADS field of view is set to effective. So the difference between effective and independent, when you have it set to independent and you ADS your gun, it's going to zoom in. It's basically gonna zoom you from, if you're at 118 FOV, it's gonna zoom you back in to 80 or 90, I can't remember, but it's gonna zoom in. So yeah, you'll see the enemy more, but the recoil is going to be a little bit harder to control because it's zoomed in, so you're going to be bouncing up and down. So make sure you have that set to affected. Weapon field of view, make sure you set that to wide. What that's going to do is that's going to basically make your gun visually smaller on your screen, so it's not taking up space around your weapon. So it's just to have better vision, better peripherals, that sort of stuff. Third person field of view doesn't really matter. I mean, no one plays in third person. Vehicle field of view, I have mine set to wide so I can see more when you're in the vehicle. Make sure your motion blur, your weapon blur, all of this stuff is turned off, because when you're in those close engagement gunfights and you're whipping around and you're trying to track the enemy, if everything's blurring, you're going to lose them. So make sure you have these turned off. Film grain, I have set to 0. This stuff doesn't matter. You can copy it if you want, really doesn't matter. Spectator camera, I put mine on game perspective. If you guys didn't know that this is where that setting is. If you ever spectate somebody, they get in the car and they get out of the car and you're on that stupid helmet cam, that's what this is right here under view and graphics. Come to spectator camera, set it to game perspective. That way, whenever they go in and out of the vehicle or whatever the case is, that you'll be in the game perspective, not their stupid little head cam. A couple of people have told me that they've been having an issue with their parachute when they jump out of the plane, that the whole way down they're in third person. So if you're having that issue, that this is where that setting is. Come here, make sure it's set to first person. That way you're not in third person as you're coming down. Okay, so for the first setting that we're going to try, we have our upscaling and sharpening set to the AMD FSR 3.0. AMD preset is set to ultra performance, and our VRAM scale is set to 90. So let's see what the gameplay looks like with those settings. Alright, so I want you to take note in the top left of what my frames are doing. So I'm getting above 400 frames right now on the ultra setting, but I want you to take note of the image quality of the game. In my opinion, the game looks a little flat. Now you may be thinking, but Tipple, the game looks good. I don't know, I don't see what you're saying. Well, let's go ahead and switch into the performance setting, and at the end of the video, we're going to do a side-by-side comparison. So all we've done at this point is change the ultra setting preset to performance, and you can see here as I gun this guy at long range, it's very Play-Doh-like. It's kind of hard to see him at range. If we look at my FPS up at the top, you can see that we're still hovering around 400, a little bit above 400. So the difference between ultra and performance doesn't really affect your FPS as much. It's just your image quality that gets affected. Now, the balanced and the quality presets is kind of the same thing. We're still hovering between 350 and 400 FPS, sometimes peaking a little above 400. It's not until we get down to the native preset that you really notice a huge drop in FPS. Once I got to the native, I'm about 300 FPS on average, but the image quality does look better. At this point, we have switched from AMD 3.0 to the FIDELITYFXCAS. Our strength is 100, and our VRAM scale is still set to 90. You can see here that the frames have dropped dramatically. I'm only getting an average of around 200 frames once we switch to CAS. So in this next clip, we're going to change our FIDELITYFXCAS strength from 100 down to 0. And so what this does is this is going to lower your image quality, and we're going to see if it helps boost the frames at all. So if you see as I land in here with my pull my gat, it's pretty insane. But you can look at my frames and see that it didn't really affect the frames much. If anything, it made them a little bit worse, but it made the image quality worse. And finally, now we're going to set our VRAM scale down to 50. Now what VRAM is going to do is it's going to give you better image quality and textures without bogging down your graphics card. Typically, you're going to want your VRAM high, but let's see what it does at 50. So running the VRAM around 50 doesn't really affect me all that much because I have a high-end graphics card. I have a 7000 series AMD. If you have a 40 series NVIDIA, you can also run it at 50, but if you have a lesser GPU, then I would highly suggest running this at 90. So on the left, we have FIDELITYFXCAS, strength 100, VRAM 90. On the right, we have AMD FSR, ultra performance, and also at 90. You can see here that on the left side, the picture itself looks a little bit more clear, but we have 200 frames per second on average. On the right, the picture looks not as clear, kind of Play-Doh-y, but we're getting double the frames at around 400 frames per second. So if you don't have an AMD graphics card that is a 7000 series or above, you might not have the extra AMD options. In that case, just use FIDELITYFXCAS FX and set it up to 100 with 90 VRAM scale. If you're still getting those texture issues in the game, then set that VRAM scale back until you no longer have those texture bugs. Now, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much, guys. I'm a brand new creator. I don't really know exactly what I'm doing with the editing, so if there's anything that I didn't cover or explain well enough, let me know down in the comments and I'll do my best to explain it to you through there. But I really appreciate you watching the video all the way through. I promise the videos are going to get better as we go because I'm still learning. I'm learning every day. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you'd like. And I promise the videos are going to get better and I'm going to give you even more information. Thanks, guys.